Good morning, my rogue readers. My name is Erin Rogoff, and welcome back to my BookTube channel, where books are the topic of discussion all day, every day. And in today's video, I want to talk about the top 10 books I would take with me during the apocalypse. And no, COVID-19 doesn't count because the human race will continue even afterwards. So, before we start, if the world was coming to an end, where would you go? What would you bring with you, and who would you go with? Answering those questions in order, I and my family would go to our cabin upstate. It is not technically our cabin, but we rent it all the time, so I call it our cabin, and so does my brother. And then I would take with me all the necessities that I would need, and I would bring a lot of books. I couldn't bring my whole collection, but I would just figure out which books, like maybe the top 50, I guess, that I would want to bring with me, and then I'd go up there. And then I'd bring along my trusted friends, and if in the zombie apocalypse, any survivor who would be worth trusting. And yes, I have thought about this because whenever I have family movie night with my mom and my dad and my brother, and we watch a zombie apocalypse movie, we actually discuss these things afterwards. Like in World War Z, we talk about the 12th man theory, and I'm usually that person because, well, nobody loves zombie apocalypse movies more than me. So anyway, here are the top 10 books that I would take with me in the apocalypse because I would need something to do while the time is ticking by, starting with A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. It is a young adult fiction fantasy romance novel, and it's book 2 of the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, where Beauty falls in love with the Beast, and then becomes a beast, and then she falls for another beast, who is the ever-attractive Rhysand. Anyway, why would I bring this book along with me in the apocalypse? Sarah J. Maas is my ultimate favorite author, so I can't imagine my life without her work, just because she is my literary idol. And other reasons? Well, Chapter 55, Wingspan, and daydreaming about Cassian if he was played by Jason Momoa, because he is the person who I would wish would play him when a movie is made. And as far as my dream cast goes, Feyre would be played by Natalie Dormer, Rhysand would be played by Ian Somerhalder, and Cassian would be, of course, Jason Momoa. The next book I would take with me in the apocalypse is After the Game by Abby Glines. It is a young adult fiction romance novel, and it is book 3 of the Field Party series. Why would I bring this book along with me in the apocalypse? After the Game was actually the one book that made me realize that I can read books about high school again without having flashbacks of bullying, so thank you, Abby Glines, that means the world to me. It's just a really incredible feeling to know that I don't hold hatred over anyone anymore, and that's just very empowering. Sorry that I got a little bit off topic there, but the third book that I would take with me in the apocalypse, or wait, was it the third or the fourth? That would be Gone by Michael Grant. It is a young adult fiction, science fiction series, and it's book 1 of the Gone series. Why would I bring this book along with me in the apocalypse? Michael Grant is actually another one of my favorite authors, and Gone is one of the books in the series that I absolutely love the best, so I would take that along with me. And basically, the way to explain the Gone series is basically if Stephen King wrote Lord of the Flies, because it's exactly like Lord of the Flies meets X-Men, and the book series is just so thrilling that I couldn't put it down. And if you've seen a bunch of my older videos, then you'll know how obsessed I am with the Gone series, because I go through a whole series of videos talking about it, and then all hope is lost. But tell me in the comments below what power you would want to have if you were in the Fallout Alley Youth Zone. I would want to have telepathic abilities or the ability to fly, since I am quite flighty sometimes. Moving on to a poetry sort of novel that I would want to take with me in the apocalypse, it is Crank by Ellen Hopkins. It is dark poetry, and it focuses on a normal 15-year-old schoolgirl going from her normal self to a drug-addicted girl, and it's free verse, and it is one of my favorite poetry books. And I never used to be into poetry until I read the Crank trilogy, and I love Ellen Hopkins' work because her words are beautiful, and she can make something so dark and so real seem so sadly beautiful, like the fall from grace to desolate. I don't know how to explain it, but I implore you guys to read the book because it is such a good read. And it does get downright brutal sometimes, but the one book that I would never want to reread is actually identical, also by Ellen Hopkins, because that is literally, in my opinion, the darkest book that I have ever read or will ever read. Another book that I would take with me in the apocalypse is City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. That is book 3 of the Mortal Instruments series, and it's pretty interesting. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but what is a world without urban fantasy or supernatural aspects? Cassie Clare's writing has shadow hunters, angels, demons, vampires, werewolves, witches, warlocks. It works. And in my mind, her books will always be the new G1 of urban fantasy literature. And if you don't know what that means, look it up. Far as a summer romance coming-of-age fiction novel, I would have to say would be That Summer by Sarah Dessen. It is a standalone novel and quite possibly one of my favorite books written by Sarah Dessen. And although it took some time for this book to actually grow on me, I think this is the type of calm writing that my inner warrior reader was lacking. So it's a nice change from all the action and all the heavy. So that was pretty interesting, and I do recommend this book to anyone looking for something like that. Another book that I would take with me is Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. It is a young adult fiction fantasy romance novel, and it's book 1 of the Ash Princess trilogy, so there are 3 books that I have yet to read. Now, Ash Princess is one of the books that I haven't read yet, but I really want to, and I haven't had the opportunity or the time to read it yet, so I figure if the apocalypse was imminent, I'm joking of course, then this would be the perfect time to read this book. And then I would probably write in my journal another review because I wouldn't be able to share it on BookTube with you guys if the apocalypse was coming close and coming to an end. Sorry about that. Another book that I would take with me is Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Ray Carson. It is a young adult fiction, historical romance, fantasy series, and it's book 1 of the Gold Seer trilogy. And this is another book that I haven't had the chance to read yet, so if I'm traveling the country in search of a new home, I might as well take a book that has to do with going to the West. Now that I think about it, lots of people throughout history went to the West, and I'm not just talking about the real Christopher Columbus or the fictional Gandalf, Elrond, Galadriel, and Bilbo. I'm talking about a bunch of other people too, like Lewis and Clark, and those are the only 2 people who come to mind right now. But anyway, that is another book that I would take with me. Moving on to another book. There will always be an LGBTQ community, I am thinking, so what would a world be like without literature that involves one of those aspects? So I would take with me They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, which is a young adult fiction LGBTQ plus romance novel. It is a standalone, although it does deserve a sequel. And it is my second favorite LGBTQ novel that I think is so worth the read. And if you don't know, If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo is my ultimate favorite LGBTQ novel, but that is on my list of Kindle books that I would bring with me in the apocalypse. And for the grand finale book, I would want to bring with me Plagueland by Alex Scarrow. It is a young adult fiction, science fiction, apocalyptic fiction novel, and it is book 1 of the Remade series. Why would I want to bring it along with me during the apocalypse? Well, with coronavirus amok on this planet, I might as well bring along a book that's similar to the situation. Not that people are dying and becoming massive liquid masses, of course. And then Plagueland is actually one of my new favorite books, besides A Court of Mist and Fury, Gone, If I Was Your Girl, and the whole Crank trilogy, so I honestly can't leave it behind. Do you think so too? Anyway, with all that said, what are the top 10 books that you would bring with you in an apocalyptic event? If you can't narrow down your options to just 10, then tell me the 10 genres, the 10 book series, or 10 authors whose books you would love to take with you. And remember, if the world was ending, then we could all borrow books from a bookstore, then return them in the afterlife library. So, that said, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button to show some support, subscribe to my booktube channel to get more videos like this, turn those notifications on to be notified when I have a brand new video uploaded. Have a great day, everyone. Oh, and keep on reading.